Hi guys, Taylor Cocke here for Yahoo Esports. I am standing here with Ben Silverman in the Hearthstone Tavern at BlizzCon. At the end of the day, we might have a beverage.
We're going to have a beverage.
Yeah, a beverage.
There's no might. There's no might about it.
There will be beverages involved. We're going to talk about the new Hearthstone expansion, which, Benjamin, what is that called?
It's called the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan.
Yes, which is right after One Night in Karazhan. So it kind of rhymes in a weird way?
It rhymes. It's hard to remember. Everything about this is a little hard to remember because we just learned about it today, and we just got all the cards, not all the cards, only about 30 of the cards have been released so far. There's going to be 132 in the expansion.
That we've seen
31 that we've seen today. Okay, fine.
That's why we got our phones out, so we can actually remember what some of the cards are called.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we wouldn't. So Ben, what are some of your favorite cards that we've seen so far? We played a couple matches, had a little bit of fun.
We did. Well, my favorite one right now is called Kazakus, I believe is the name of the card. And this is a really cool card, and what's so cool about it is that not only is it a pretty good card for the cost of the minion, but you actually get to customize and create your own potion. And I don't realize people know how cool that is until you get to do it.
Yeah.
I was really excited. I didn't know how it was going to play, and I threw them out, and then all of a sudden, like, you get a pop-up, sort of like a discover ability, and you choose 1, 5, or 10 mana cost potion, and then from there you can choose 2 other abilities, or one other ability, because there's one built into each one of those costs. So you end up with a potion that has 2 different abilities. That's pretty potent. I mean, I made a 5-drop potion that summoned back all of my minions and allowed me to draw a couple cards. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it kind of messed me up for a little bit. I mean, I still won.
You were tilted for a second.
For a moment, I was pretty unhappy about the situation.
That's true.
But it's something that I've been noticing about this set is they seem to be focusing a lot more on smaller minions. There's a ton of smaller legendaries that we've seen. I was playing with the Paladin one, which I'm pulling up right now because I can't remember. It's really long. Wicker Flame Burn Bristle.
That's not easy to remember, even if it had been a week.
Even if I had played with this card for months and months, I would have never remembered that. But it's only 3 mana for a pretty solid little legendary. Not only that, it's like they seem to be focusing a lot on smaller minions just as a whole. Specifically, I played both games where I got Paladin, it's sort of a randomized deck list.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of smaller minions that are looking to sort of overwhelm the board and really take over the game.
I think it makes sense because Whispers of the Old Gods had so many huge minions. That was all about late game. How are you going to kind of lead the game or build up Cthulhu or drop Benzoth or whatever you're going to do? You're waiting and saving for kind of this late game. This feels so much different. This feels like you can get these legendaries out. You can get these kind of crazy cards out that can do a lot of weird effects and interesting damage. There was one card, however, I think his name is Khun the Forgotten King.
Yes, that guy.
Really big. It's 10 mana, and he has 2 interesting abilities. He can either gain you 10 armor, or he can replenish all of your mana. And I actually use that ability, which essentially gets you 20 mana.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you got to wait until you get 10 mana to use him, but if you can ramp up, he can really get a lot of cards out on the board. If you're in trouble, and I was in trouble when I played him, he helped. I did not win the game. You won the game.
In trouble after that too.
But I was at least in a better position thanks to that card.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that they're trying to make it so the game is a lot more dynamic and a lot more. Every turn you're doing something. Whereas, like you said, in Karazhan, and especially if you're watching some of the Hearthstone tournament that's going on here at BlizzCon, a lot of the cards there are turns where you're not doing anything, which kind of feels bad in a hard game or in a card game a lot of the time. It's also a hard game, but I'm really happy to see the direction that this is going. I'm going to be really interested to see what happens with the meta rolls into this new expansion. Just to see the way that a lot of these control decks start dealing with these aggro decks that are going to almost certainly start popping up. Yeah,
you can get a lot of minions out with a lot of these cards. There's a lot of discover abilities, a lot of so again, these smaller minions that summon other minions. So there's going to definitely be a lot more with aggroing. But what do you think about building decks just within this set? Because often, with Cthulhu, people first started just building Cthulhu decks. Do you think we're gonna see the same thing with Gadgetzan? Do you think we're gonna see a lot of Gadgetzan decks, or are people gonna start working these cards into their other decks more frequently?
I think that right now, it seems that there aren't a lot of the same sort of gimmicks that we saw in Whispers of the Old Gods.
Yeah.
Whispers of the Old Gods, like you said, the Cthulhu decks were that was a big old gimmick at that time. This seems to be a lot more cards that are just kind of valuable on their own. And something that's interesting that I saw today was there's a lot of cards that including the family, the clan cards, or I think they're called, the ones that you can play in one of 3 different classes.
Yeah. Tri-class cards.
Tri-class cards.
Yeah.
You can sort of grab, a lot of them have discoverability that you can grab cards from any one of the 3 classes that can be played in.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of really dynamic, really RNG focused stuff. That isn't too RNG because it still discovers, so you still have choice, which is nice. But it seems to me that a lot of these cards are really just going to be good within the competitive meta as it stands. They're going to be added to a lot of decks that already exist. I have a feeling there's going to be some aggro decks that are starting to pop up. I think aggro paladin is going to be super strong, just based on what we've seen so far. So I think really it's going to be less about creating decks purely from the set and more about adding new old metas.
Well, and you brought up RNG, which is always a big problem with Hearthstone, and everyone's kind of concerned about RNG. And I found in at least what we were playing with, the RNG was there, but it was fun, and you did feel, again, like you had some sort of control over it. I mean, it's weird when you're a priest with a hunter secret or whatever, you're a paladin with a hunter secret, and it makes it hard to be able to predict what your opponent's going to have because of all those crazy class shifting abilities. So it's a little harder to maybe read your opponent, and I like that. I like that it's a little less like, well, this is going to be a tempo mage, I know what's going to come at me. So I think for that reason alone, it might mix up the competitive scene. But RNG is always there, and it's always going to be a contentious thing in Hearthstone, and I don't think they've done themselves any favors to relieve the RNG issue here.
I think it is the difference between bad RNG and good RNG.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I think this leans somewhere in the middle. This is somewhere, it's going to be really interesting to see what the pros have to say about this. Hopefully we can talk to some of them today, or tomorrow, or at some point during BlizzCon. And if we do, I'll be all right here on Yahoo Esports.
But first we're going to have a drink.
But first we're going to have a drink.
Then we'll talk to a pro.
Thank you, Ben, for talking to me today.